Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and I'm here with the star of our show, Mr. Doug Lawrence, who is the founder of TalentC, and he's an international certified mentor. Doug, welcome to Stories of Hope, Inspiration, and Overcoming Adversity.
Well, thank you very much, and hello and good day to everybody, our viewing and listening audience that's all over the world. Thank you for taking the time to join with us today to have a great conversation. And I look forward to where this is going to go.
Excellent, Doug. Our topic is if only, the stories we tell ourselves. And what came to light for me is that various times through my life, through my journey, I would think, if only I were thinner. If only I lived somewhere else. If only I hadn't dated that guy. If only I'd married that guy. And just these games, these stories that we just tell ourselves that I think that they are just a waste of time and they prevent us from actually moving forward. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
You know, I'm not sure that I would categorize them as a waste of time. Sometimes I guess I could probably say that, but I look at all of those stories as learning opportunities. So it helps me to be able to have a better understanding of me as an individual because, you know, I'll use, because I've had the same one where, you know, I wish I was 20 pounds lighter. Actually, I did a survey on, I can't remember where it was yesterday, and that was one of the questions, you know, how much weight do you need to lose? And I thought, I don't know, I'll pick a number, Doug, just pick a number. So I'm 20, 30 pounds would be actually probably, yeah, that'd be all right. You know, and so am I a bad person because I'm not there, that I haven't been able to, you know, to move past that point? Or is that so what am I learning from this experience with the weight loss, you know, challenge is that maybe it's not as important of an issue for us because I haven't been able to move that needle on the scale, that maybe it's not as big a deal. And maybe people accept us for who we are and what we're worth, so to speak. So it's an interesting, I think that if we approach it from the aspect of what am I going to learn from that particular experience, it's maybe, it doesn't become so demoralizing, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Doug, I am smiling back here because, as you know, we don't script any of this. And I just love what you brought up because I can completely relate to what you were just discussing, because this is a topic that goes on for me over and over and over again. I just saw on Instagram earlier today a picture of a woman, 3 pictures of her, one extreme to the other. And I thought, I'm actually the one in the middle. Okay. So I'm thinking, well, it's not as bad as the beginning one, but I really should be at the other one. And I looked at her and she's probably in her 20s. And I thought, that doesn't matter. You're making an excuse for yourself. So I'd like to be maybe 3 pounds thinner. And I torment myself every single day. If only I didn't eat that bagel today. If only. And the point is, when I say waste of time, it is a waste of my energy because I did eat the bagel. And obviously, if I really wanted to be 3 pounds thinner, I could be 3 pounds thinner. I just don't, it doesn't mean as much to me as I must tell myself that I should be that.
And we've talked about this before, but there's no shoulds in life, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
I just, for me, it becomes, am I happy with where I am today? Using weight as an example, no, I think I could probably be better. But so what if you're not there? So what does that mean? They're going to take away your birthday, and if that's the case, they can take it. I don't care. They go ahead. It's, if you want to add my numbers to yours, good luck with that. You know, I look at it from the aspect of happiness is probably the best way for me to sort of categorize is my level of happiness to a place where I'm just not happy with how I look, you know, with the weight and all that sort of stuff? Or is there something else that is kind of underneath, you know, the whole idea of the weight loss thing? Is there something else that's underneath that I'm maybe not aware of, or maybe I'm choosing to push down or push away because I don't want to have to talk about that, or I don't want to engage in a conversation with somebody that, you know, so tell me how much weight do you think I should lose? Does it really matter? You know, and to me, I've reached a point in my life where it doesn't matter anymore. I've gone through all kinds of weight loss stuff, and I've gone from, I remember when I was stationed in northern BC, and I still to this day don't know what my wife Deborah saw in me, but I was 260 pounds, and I eventually got down to, I think I was about 180 at one time point. And did it really matter? I got the girl of my dreams, who saw something in me that, you know, that I obviously didn't see, because, you know, it was, so it's one of those things where you need to take the step back and you need to have the conversation to say, okay, what am I going to learn from, you know, if I have to beat myself up to get the 2 pounds, or in my case, it was a lot more, you know, or is there something that I need, that I'm missing here? Is there something that's underneath, you know, an underlying issue that I need to be able to deal with first, and then maybe that'll help with the weight loss?
Great, great questions, and a lot of introspection, I guess, that we all can take the time to do. I think what's also important, if we look at it from the other perspective, I said to myself in November, my gastroenterologist said, you're close to losing your colon. So thank goodness I'm in remission. Thank you, colon, still here. I didn't have to go to that heavy duty drug they wanted to put me on. So then I say, okay, now you're making excuses. There's excuses why you don't want to lose this other 2 or 3 pounds, because so it just goes on and on and on. And I know that people do this with money. If only I had more money, I'd do this, this, and this. If only. And so when we think about this show, stories of hope, inspiration, and overcoming adversity, I feel like for me personally, I put my own adversity in the way of being what I potentially could be, because I'm always knocking myself down, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Anyone, I think, that's a high achiever is going to do exactly what you're, you know, describing. Is you're going to continually keep pushing yourself down, and, you know, you go through the whole "I'm not worthy," you know, all of those, you know, sort of I call them the selves, the self-worth, self-doubt, all all of those, you know, all of those different self statements, and that you know, if we listen and hear what they're telling us, we can be pulled into this, as I call it, the vortex, and just get sucked right down to where we have we don't believe in who we are, and we, as a result of that, we're very reluctant to do anything of any good. So we constantly are looking for the bad, and we're constantly trying to shape things in a negative context so that it aligns or is with our current belief structure. And so, that can be, is it, the weight loss thing, or is it, some other things that we're dealing with? I think that we need to explore some of that stuff a little bit deeper before we go too far down that, as they say, go down that rabbit hole and end up having to try and figure out, how am I going to get back to a place where I believe in myself and where I can maybe look at things through a different set of lenses, where it's not all negative and that there are some positive aspects, that we can reach out and grab and move forward with, and deal with the adversity that, comes with the hope that I'm going to lose that 20 pounds or that 30 pounds, or, in my case, it was a significantly bigger number than that. And, what were some of the challenges that I went through in order to be able to keep moving forward and doing all of that? You sort of think, how many times has your wardrobe changed, where you gained weight, so you bought more clothes that fit better. Then you lost all that weight, you couldn't keep the clothes on, so then you either, you went and bought smaller size clothing, or you got stuff tailored and all sorts. So it becomes that perpetual hamster on the wheel, just going around and around and around, and up, down, buy more, sell, all that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, you have to make a decision what's important for you, and be able to move forward with that.
I agree with you. I think also we talk a lot on this channel, this platform, about lifestyle choices. And when it comes to weight, for example, I believe that my issue with my weight is very deep rooted back to when I was a teenager. I also think that as we get older, we're used to doing certain things, eating certain things, and we can't do the same because our body's going, hello, no, I don't think so, especially for a woman, going into menopause. So how can we basically look at what could be a deep-seated problem to what could be a lifestyle change that's necessary?
Well, I think the deep-seated problem could very well be, health-wise, but it can also be psychological. It could be, a combination of both of those things, where, you have the demons in the closet, so to speak, that you need to be able to deal with before you kind of move forward with, dealing with, weight loss and that, and it could simply be, growing up, maybe, your parents were such that they weren't supportive, or, in when you would say, I think I need to lose 10 pounds, they would throw an extra couple spoonfuls of potatoes on your plate and sort of say, no, you just need to eat. If you eat, you'll stay healthy. And how can you expect to work, if you're not eating properly? And okay, so define what's properly, and it would be, those extra spoonfuls of potatoes and maybe 2 spoonfuls of gravy. Okay, I got to quit here. I'm getting hungry just thinking about that. So, but is the aspect of a couple extra spoons of gravy, and you just it just keeps it going and going and going, and you sort of end up having to take the step backwards, like I've said, and sort of say, okay, what is actually the reason why? What's the real reason why I need to lose, or I'm suggesting I need to lose the weight? And it may mean that you attempt to go down that path on your own, so that you're not dealing with, as you're, like I mentioned, your parents are sort of saying, because I know as I was growing up working and living on a farm, it was, we actually were talking about this the other day, was actually on the weekend, I guess it was, how we were encouraged, or it was suggested that it was in our best interest to eat our plate, clean your plate so that you didn't leave anything, no leftovers were left, and how important that was. And then what the impact was, as you've mentioned, as we get older, that our metabolism is such that it won't process the amount of food that we're putting in there, and the type of food that we're putting in there versus what it was capable of doing when we were in our late teens, early 20s.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm reminded when you're talking about families and growing up, my dad, I've said this before, but he always said you can never be too thin or too rich. And so that's really been paramount in my life, because I've never been about money, and different relationships I was in with guys to be like, you should be making a lot more money than you're making with all the degrees that you have, and this, and it was never important to me. But yet it's interesting that that what my father said, that those two things have had a major impact in my life, and it's not his fault. But I am curious, what are your thoughts as to how someone can say something to you and it deeply resonates with you for decades later?
Oh, I mean, you've just given a perfect example, and I think of, I think of my parents, and more so my dad, who was more the disciplinarian, I guess, for lack of a better choice of words. And he, for him, it was hard work. Hard work was important. You had to work hard to, to get to where you wanted to get to, and it was, I just, I think that pushing forward like that, and with the work ethics being what he suggested they would be, or should, can't use that, could be, I just was that in my best interest. And so, and at that time in my life, I don't know that I'm astute enough to be able to say, well, no, it's not, because what did I know? I was just a strapping young farm boy who was just doing what he was told, to, go and feed the animals, and, get on the tractor and go plow the soil, and, and do all of that before you go to school in the morning, catch the bus and go to school. So, it was, I just think that some of the things that we, what if I had chosen to go a different path? What would that look like? And I know at one time point I had visions of grandeur, where I was going to become a chiropractor, because I'd gone to one a couple of times, and I went, ooh, this is cool, and this guy makes money doing this on top of it all. So let's maybe think about doing that. And then the reality sets in that, we're living on a farm, limited income. And at that particular stage, it was, if that's the path you want to take, we'll have to figure out how we're going to financially help you, to get through that. Maybe there'll be less holidays for you and more work for you to be able to. So it was a complete mix up. But at the end of it, I ended up going to taking, going down the path of law enforcement, joining the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which didn't really cost me any money to do so. They actually paid me to go through the training. So that was, I found a balance of what I could live with, and sort of, what were some of the things I would have to deal with in order to be able to make that a reality, were things that, we definitely needed to have a conversation about, because there was adversity because there was the aspect of having to be a certain weight, certain height in order to be accepted into the training program. And so, having to figure out, okay, how am I going to make some of that happen? And, was that something that I hoped that I would be able to do? Is that what I really wanted to do? Or was this just kind of just go down this path to get everybody off your back, so to speak? So there's just all kinds of different things. When you start to talk about hope and adversity, you open the door to a number of different things that, you could have to, the what if situations.
It's so true. And the story that you shared about being a chiropractor, and I think about some things in my past that I thought, oh, maybe I could do this or do that. If you remember back, if you could actually put yourself back into that situation, you may have some things come up for you, as I do, that we don't actually remember the way that it really was. And I'm not saying specifically to that story, but many times we look back on the past and think, if only this, and we're really sugarcoating whatever the situation was. It seems so much better now when we look back on it, but at the time it wasn't right, because if it was right, we would have moved forward or at least made an attempt. So I feel like we kind of make it into a soap opera that it's, oh yeah, this is really fabulous, but it wasn't what we wanted or needed at the time.
It was, yeah, that's a good point, because it's almost as though it wasn't meant to be.
Yes.
When I think about, how things evolved, would the going down the path of the chiropractor, would that have been a good move? When I think back to at that time point, it wasn't. I don't think it was the right path to take. I do believe going down the path of going through, the RCMP training and then, I think of all the things. If it hadn't have been for me being a police officer, I would never have met Deborah. So you start to think of all the what ifs, right? And for every what if that you can come up with, there's a number of spin-offs that can take place. And so, wouldn't have met her, wouldn't have got married, wouldn't have spent close to 43 years, married as a couple, would not have met the people, excluding, my relationship with Deborah, but would not have met some of the people that I've been able to meet right up to, to today. So, our paths probably would never have crossed, because I wouldn't have gone down this path.
It is fascinating, really. And something else I think is important, and I'd love to know your thoughts as a person and then also as a mentor. When it comes to the past, I don't like to spend a lot of time in the past. Like, for example, let's say you have an altercation with someone and that was years ago, and then the person wants to bring it up. Remember, you said this, or you didn't do this, or I don't have time for that. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in what's going on today. Can we learn from the past? I know they always say history repeats itself, so there are people who actually study the past. But when we're living in the past and we're constantly comparing ourselves to what was, is that a good use of our time and energy? And if so, how?
I typically turn those into learning opportunities. My best answer for you is if I, let's just, use one of your examples. If I come across or I encounter somebody that, years ago I had a falling out with, if I were to meet them today, I would simply be saying, I would be taking a different approach. Number one, I would be more coming at it more from a positive context, and I would be, for the most part, I would, I'm not sure if you recall our conversation that we had, probably 20, 30 years ago. Boy, did I ever learn a lot from that conversation. And let me share, if you're willing, let me share with you some of the things that I've taken away that's helped me become who I am today. And so shape it in that sort of context, and that, I know you're going to bring up the mentor part. I guess a large part of why I would approach it that way is that's how I would approach it if I'm mentoring somebody and, they come to me and they say, I've got this person that I knew 20 years ago. They've come back into my life and I'm just not sure what I should do and all that sort of stuff. We break it down so that we're able to determine what is the best course of action and how can we keep it in a positive context versus, a negative context. And if the conversation starts to go south on us, how are we going to back out of the conversation and sort of regain the positioning and then enter back into the conversation as long as we've created a safe place for that conversation to take place?
And I think that's a great example of how you just tied into what the name of the show is: Stories of Hope, Inspiration, Overcoming Adversity. When there is an issue with someone and you can reframe it to what you learned from it, that's not the same sense of dread that people get when they think, I remember when I was married. Well, what time are you coming home? Did you just buy those shoes? Is that a new dress? Like all those conversations that you'd be like, I don't want to have. But if you frame it in such a way of, this is what I learned from that experience, or this is what I learned from being with you or having a relationship with you, I believe that people really appreciate that even though the situation or the relationship possibly didn't work out, or you had an uncomfortable altercation or conversation, that something positive was taken away.
Yeah, and I keep, you brought up another memory for me too, because I can remember, and it kind of we both realized, Deborah and I, that we needed to communicate with each other better. And part of the reason for that was, it would be 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I'd come rolling through the door and, so what's for supper? And, supper's was at 5 or 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock at the latest. And it was, how come you didn't call to sort of let us know you're going to be late? And, at that particular time point, it wasn't a big deal, for me, but, it was, we need to be able to communicate better with each other and be respectful in doing so that, while it may not be important to me that you've gone through a whole bunch of work to prepare a meal, it certainly has relevance in the fact that I now have something that I can eat when I come home. But we need to have the conversation ahead of time to be able to say, looks like I'm going to be half an hour, 45 minutes late. Is that okay? Not that I can change the outcome of that, but, at least I'm sharing, where I'm communicating better where I am and what I'm doing, so that it becomes that way you're in a better, Deborah was in a better place to be able to figure out what she should do with, when she should throw the pot or the roast in the oven and all that sort of stuff. So I think I could probably take us back to every single situation, and the art of communication, learning how to communicate effectively was, or could be, a solution to a lot of the unhappiness that sometimes happens in relationships, where I just think communication breaks down. We don't use it as much as we could in order to get us through different situations.
I agree with you. And I think that also lends into the power of listening. And when we're listening at an elevated level, when we're effectively communicating, many times it'll eliminate that stress, and both parties know how to respond to the other's behavior. But yet that doesn't mean we always do it.
No.
And sometimes we're so caught up in whatever it is that we're going through. And I know I've done this too. You think something's happened and it's the end of the world. Like and meanwhile, everything is temporary. I always say this, except for death and taxes. And depending how you feel about death, it may not be temporary, right? You might be coming back in another form. So what can we leave our audience with today? We have about 10 minutes left in the show when it comes to taking adversity and turning it on its head. In the darkest moments, you've shared really well about the grief that you're going through. It's been a dark place. It's been a dark experience, yet you keep moving forward. You keep giving of yourself to help others. What does it take for someone who's in that dark place to see the light and to move forward?
The most important thing for anybody that's going through, grief and those times of really deep darkness is to just know that, you're not alone. And if you can reach out and ask for help, that, there will be somebody there that can help you. If nothing else, just to listen and hear and be non-judgmental about, what it is you're going through. That is probably the most important thing that we can do. And I keep bringing us back to communication, and that's so important for me to be able to for people to understand that the more that you can communicate and talk, that in itself is part of the therapy that you need, and that you could get relatively easy by just reaching out and saying, you are not alone, and you need to reach out for help, and somebody will be there. I'll be there.
There's a song, I'll be there, I'll be there. So I think it's important that people really, truly do believe that they are not alone and that someone will be there for them, because many times we get caught up in judging ourselves. Oh, I'm so stupid. I should be better than this. I should be able to get past this. And again, that's not helping us.
No, it's not, because you've crossed over into the whole self-worth, self-doubt, the selfies, the self things that I talk about quite often. And when you start to doubt, I do this little exercise when I'm mentoring some people that are dealing with self-esteem and self-confidence, where I suggest that they take a pack of little yellow Post-it notes, and they write positive affirmation statements on it and stick it to the mirror in the bathroom as they're getting ready to go to work. And so you've got these statements that say, I am a good person. I bring value to the workplace. I bring value to those that I'm surrounded by. I'm capable of doing more if I would only allow myself to do more. And so all kinds of positive, affirmations and stuff like that is going to help us to be able to move forward and be able to deal with some of that. So we're going to be pushing that adversity away, and we're going to now, sort of see that there is hope, that we're going to be able to move forward, that we're going to find something that is going to help us see things in a more positive light than what we do today. And if we can get to that point or that stage, that's going to change our position in the world, and it's going to change our, how the outcomes that we're going to be able to realize.
Yes, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. So, for anybody who's out there and you're going through a difficult time, Doug and I are both available for you here. You are not alone. If you want to come and share your story, we would love to have you do that. And Doug, I'd like you to speak a little bit on that, because somebody going through adversity, they might think the last thing I want to do is come into the public domain and tell everybody about what I'm going through. Why could that be helpful for them?
What I found, and this is just for me speaking, is the aspect of the more that I get to share, the more that I get to talk about what it is I'm going through and how I'm feeling, and sort of that roller coaster of, emotions and stuff that I'm dealing with. The more that I'm able to do that, the more therapeutic it has become for me. It's become therapeutic for me with my healing journey. So as much as it wasn't easy for me at the beginning. Let's, kind of put that on the table. It wasn't easy for me at the very beginning to, tell my story. But now I've found that the more that I get to tell that story, that the better I feel emotionally, and that I'm able to deal with and manage my emotions a whole lot better than what I was back when I started this journey, probably 4 or 5 months ago. And I remember the very, very first time I openly shared what I was experiencing. And I remember it was, I shared that my wife, Deborah, had passed away because of cancer. And, it was one of those no scripted sort of things that I'm kind of prone to doing. And I openly shared that. And it was a very emotional sharing for me, because it was the first time that I had done that. And what I found now is the more that I share, the easier it becomes, and the actually, to be honest, the deeper that I can go and pull that out, those feelings, that roller coaster of emotions, that I'm able to pull that out and be able to use that as a means to move forward with what it is that with my healing journey.
Thank you so much, Doug. It reminds me of this movie that I saw, Up in the Air, with George Clooney. Did you see that?
I'm trying to think. I think I did.
And not a paid spokesperson, but he talks about this backpack, and he travels with this backpack and stuff everything into it in your life, all your family, your furniture, all of your things, and put it on and feel the weight of those straps pulling into your skin. And I feel like what we do here is we help you unpack the backpack. And because we don't want to be weighed down with all the weight of all this stuff. And I think that's where people sometimes we miss that opportunity to unburden ourselves, because for some reason at some point in life, I know that I heard this, keep everything to yourself. Nobody really cares. Just, keep your lips zipped, and that's passé.
Yeah, it definitely is. We need to look at things from a different perspective now. And, the more that you can comfortably share what you're going through, the more that you get to do that, the better you're going to feel at the end of that particular part of your journey. And it's going to, I know for me, like I said, I can flash back to my very first, time where I openly shared that, this is what I'm going through, and my wife, Deborah, had passed away. And what's also interesting is it's not as difficult to say her name as what it was when we first started this. And I just realized that just now that, I don't, I don't say, I don't refer to her as my wife, or I do to some extent, but I always try to bring it back to what her name, what Deborah's name is. And that becomes part of my sharing process. Is I'm now building a relationship with each and every one of you, and with Deborah.
I love that you shared that, Doug, because I also noticed that about you. And I not also noticed that I feel you're more comfortable each week, more and more. And so for people out there watching or listening, this is what it's all about. It's taking that journey, putting yourself out there, and not being afraid.
Yeah. Fear is fear. And I had fear that was one of my demons to have to deal with when I first started doing this. And I'm in a place now where fear is not an issue. Am I scared at times? Yes. I'd probably be not telling the truth if I were to say that this is a cakewalk, but it requires work, but it's work in a positive sense, in that I get to share, some stories of what I'm dealing with, and some stories about Deborah, and that is important to me.
Well, you're important to me, and you're important to this platform, and I appreciate you being here and being so transparent and so forthcoming. Doug, how can people reach out to you? And if they want to be on the show, we've got openings. We'd love to have them, and you're available to work with people. Tell us more about that.
So most definitely, I'm here for you whenever you feel comfortable enough to reach out. So you can reach out through my website at www.talentc.ca. You can also reach me through LinkedIn and just direct message me if you want to get a hold of me. But probably the easiest way for you to get a hold of me that I would encourage you to take is by email, and you can get a hold of me at doug.lawrence, LAWRENCE, at talentc.ca. So the word talent, letter small, letter C on the end.ca. And I'll get back to you right away. And we can have a conversation about what you're dealing with and where you want to go, and what do you see your healing journey as. And, I'll do that for you, definitely at no cost. And, we'll kind of put the money issue on the side, which it becomes is usually an issue. And I want you to feel comfortable that this is the right thing. And then we can have a conversation about that part. So, yeah. And, the other aspect is that pick up a copy of You Are Not Alone through Amazon, and just take a read. It's got some personal stories and stuff in there. It'll help you you'll have a better understanding of me as an individual, but also Deborah, because she plays a part in the book as well.
Wonderful. Please do reach out to Doug. He is here. He wants to work with you. You can find him on LinkedIn as well. And Doug, I look forward to seeing you again. Actually, next week we are taking a hiatus as I'll be traveling, but we will be back in 2 weeks. Next week we'll be running a replay. So we're looking forward to seeing you when we get back.
Take care.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Please remember, you're not alone. Come forward, reach out to Doug or to myself. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.